In this video, we'll be discussing the institutional tracker available on A1 Trading's tool, the Stock Box. So first of all, what is the institutional tracker and how can you use it when looking at potential stocks to buy, sell, invest in, etc.? Well, the institutional tracker is a very simple tool. Essentially, it tracks what institutions have in their portfolios on a big scale as well as on an individualistic scale. What I mean by on a big scale is by default, you'll see that we have a whole bunch of institutions listed in our software. We're pulling in data on a quarter by quarter basis, what's happening in Morgan Stanley's portfolio and JP Morgan and Berkshire Hathaway and Royal Bank of Canada. And we have all of these portfolios. And with this tool, you can either scan the collective by leaving all of them checked, or you can isolate it to just one fund or institution if you want to get a closer look as to the positions that they currently hold in their portfolio. Now, how do we have access to this? Well, it comes from the 13F filings that each of these institutions has to report on a quarter by quarter basis, revealing what they are holding in their portfolios. Now, there is a built-in delay period to the 13F, so this is not minute by minute what they're buying and selling, but it certainly can be a useful tool for getting a general idea of where big money is invested, or maybe just as importantly, where they're pulling money out of. So there's two key features obviously on the screen right now. We have this pie chart as well as this table. Let's start by taking a look at the table on the left. What we can see here is a list of many different stocks that you're probably familiar with, like Nvidia, SPY, which is the S&P 500, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Meta. And what we can see here is the latest available quarters data versus the previous quarters data across our selection of institutions. Now, what this is showing you is in thousands, so this is a really big number, $567 billion, right? So 567 million times 1,000, $567 billion is invested across our collection of institutions that we track in Nvidia alone. And that's up from the previous quarter by a margin of 120. You can see here in this third column, it has gone up by $120 billion in the quarter over quarter change. So as you can probably imagine, the purpose of this table is to look at some of the biggest holdings, but maybe more importantly, the biggest change in holdings on a quarter by quarter basis across the institutions. What makes our tool special is it makes it really easy to track the biggest buys or sells across an institutional level of accumulation or distribution. So in this case, the way to read this would be a lot of buying went on in Nvidia, SPY, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Meta, IVV, QQQ, United Health. You can see Broadcom, Google, S&P 500, Costco. So this is looking at a collection of stocks that it seems like they had a net as institutions, they bought these stocks. And conversely, we can flip this around just pressing this button and take a look at some of the things that they sold the most aggressively. Specifically, they sold out of Disney, Intel, Abbott Laboratories, COP, GE, LRCX, IWM, PXD, you get the point. By looking at this table, we can simplify our perspective and say these are stocks that they seem to have sold a lot of, and the ones that I previously showed you were things that they bought on a quarter by quarter basis. The chart on the right-hand side is a very simple pie graph, which shows us on an overall positioning basis their favorite positions across institutions. Now, in a second, I'll show you that you can, of course, isolate this down to an individual fund if you want to get a closer look at a particular fund's holdings, but this is still an aggregated view of all of the institutions that we track in our software. By the way, you can also see the assets under management with this far right-hand side. You can see the amount of money under management by each firm. We're talking some pretty big numbers. Morgan Stanley, 1.6 trillion, State Street, 2.2 trillion. These are ginormous numbers. So now what we can do is we can hover over and you can see these are stocks in their portfolio overall that institutions seem to have big positions in. Now we can select an individual fund and load the data. So under the institution tab, if we select only one of the funds, you can see we've selected Morgan Stanley. Now we can take a look at the specific holdings of this institution. And by isolating Morgan Stanley, we can now see the pie chart has become a little bit different, and we can go down the line and take a look at some of their biggest holdings. Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, Google, SPY, Meta, Visa. JP Morgan, Google, Eli Lilly, IVV, etc. So you can take a look at the individual portfolios of each one of these institutions, and we can also see a broken down table, as I mentioned, with the quarter by quarter change in each of these positions. The institutional tracker makes it very easy to keep an eye on what institutions seem to be buying and or selling on a quarter by quarter basis. It's an exceptionally useful tool for traders and investors alike who want to keep an eye on trends that seem to be taking place in institutional money flows. The institutional tracker, in combination with many other tools, are available with the A1 stock box. We'll leave a link in the description down below if you want to explore the full list of features and the tool itself on our website, a1trading.com. Thanks for watching.